They say you remember the little things when something truly awful happens. I don't remember what I ate that morning, but I remember the sound my boots made in the gravel outside the station. Crunchy, like cheap cereal, and I remember the wind, dry, carrying sand and the stink of something rotting miles off. We all figured it was a coyote carcass or roadkill. Stuff dies out here all the time. It was barely past 9 a.m., sun already baking the skin off the hills, and I was sipping burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup when Alvarez tossed the keys to the old Tahoe my way. "Your turn to run solo, cowboy," he said, smirking. "Don't fall asleep out there." I flipped him off, caught the keys. "If I die of boredom, it's on you." No one laughed. Not really. Not the way we usually did. And looking back, I think I felt it then. That tight, off-center feeling in my chest, like something was pivoting, slightly off balance. But I shook it off and climbed into the Tahoe. My patrol sector was maybe 20 miles of nothing. Dirt trails, rusted fence posts that ended in mid-air, a few busted cameras we never got around to fixing, border towns in the distance, heat haze on the horizon. Usually the worst thing I ran into were tracks, shoe treads, or old tire marks from someone trying to make it across at night. But that morning, nothing. No birds, no prints, no trash even. You ever been out in the desert and realized it's too quiet? That kind of silence has weight to it, makes your ears ring. About an hour into my route, I spotted a flicker of movement near an old livestock gate, one of those half-rusted steel contraptions that looks like it hasn't moved in years. At first I thought it was a deer, then maybe a person. Definitely a person. I slowed the Tahoe and rolled to a stop about 50 yards out. They were standing sideways, swaying a little. Back to me. Shirt torn, head tilted weirdly, like something had popped loose in their neck. "Hello?" I called out through the speaker. "This is U.S. Border Patrol. Do you need assistance?" No response. I hit the horn twice. They jerked, not turned, jerked, like a puppet on a bad string. Then they started running, not away, at me. It was awkward, limping, more stumble than sprint. I remember muttering, "What the hell?" before throwing the Tahoe into reverse and backing off about 20 feet. The guy, man, I think, slammed into the hood like he didn't even see it. Blood streaked the windshield. He started clawing at the glass. Not yelling, just grunting. This horrible wet sound. His eyes were bloodshot and glassy, but he wasn't on meth. I've seen meth. This was something else. And then I saw his arm, or what was left of it, gnawed, like someone had taken bites out of him all the way up to the elbow. I drew my sidearm, shouted at him to stop. He didn't, just kept slamming his hands against the window, trying to climb up. I should have shot him. I know that now. But I didn't. I couldn't. He was injured, maybe insane. But he was human, right? Dispatch didn't answer when I called. Not on the radio, not on the sat phone. So I did the dumbest thing I've probably ever done in my life. I stepped out of the vehicle, gun drawn, hands shaking. My boots crunched on the gravel just like that morning. "Stop moving," I yelled. "I will fire." He did stop for a second. Head twisted toward me like it wasn't fully connected. mouth opened wider than I thought it should. His jaw cracked when it dropped. Then he charged. I pulled the trigger 3 times, 2 to the chest, 1 to the neck. Center mass, he dropped, hard, face first. And for about 3 seconds, I thought that was it. Situation handled. Then he got back up, slowly, like he wasn't really in control of his body anymore, like gravity meant something different to him. I ran, not even gonna lie. I ran like hell, jumped in the Tahoe, slammed the door, threw it in gear, and floored it. Dust kicked up behind me, engine roared. I didn't look back until I was a mile out. He wasn't chasing me, not anymore. But there were others now. 2, 3, maybe 5. Crawling out from behind rocks, stumbling out of gullies, all moving the same way. Like they could smell me, like they knew. I called dispatch again. Nothing, no static, no busy tone, just silence. And then, faintly, click, click, click. Somebody had picked up. But they weren't saying anything, just breathing, long, wet, slow. I drove until the radio started spitting static and the horizon turned to haze. The desert looked wrong. I don't know how else to say it. The colors were off. Too much gray in the sand, too much shine in the sky. Like everything had been wiped clean and then forgotten. I kept one hand on the wheel, the other hovering near my sidearm, and every few seconds I'd glance in the rearview mirror just to make sure no one or nothing was following. No one was, not yet, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been marked, that something was still watching. I should have gone back to the station, should have radioed again, tried to loop in state troopers. Hell, maybe even driven straight into town and reported a rabid man, but I didn't do any of that. Instead, I followed tire tracks. See, just before everything fell apart, I noticed something strange as I was speeding off. A set of fresh treads cut deep into the dirt heading south, parallel to the old cattle trail that ran along the unregulated stretch of border. It didn't match any of our vehicles. Too wide, too clean. It wasn't protocol, but something about it tugged at me. Maybe I thought it'd lead to help. Maybe I just didn't want to be alone. I followed the tracks for maybe 3 miles until I found the van. It was tipped on its side in a wash, smoke curling up from the crumpled hood. A white panel van, no markings. All the windows were blacked out. The front passenger door was hanging open, and there were drag marks in the sand. Deep ones, like someone, or multiple someones, had been pulled out. I parked 50 yards out, killed the engine, and listened. Nothing. No birds, no wind, just the soft ticking of my engine cooling. I grabbed the shotgun from the mount behind my seat, chambered a shell, and started toward the van. My boots sank a little with each step. Ground felt softer than it should have. When I reached the edge of the wash, I called out, "U.S. Border Patrol, if you're injured, call out." No answer. I moved in slow, barrel up. Every nerve in my spine lit up like a live wire. Inside the van, it looked like a goddamn butcher's shop. Blood on the walls, streaks across the ceiling, Empty cages, metal ones like animal transport crates, strapped to the floor with broken locks. Some of them still had hair or skin caught in the hinges. A clipboard lay near the rear doors, soaked through in red, the paper warped and torn. I grabbed it, held it up. The only thing legible was a logo in the top corner. ViraClean Solutions, Biohazard Response Unit. My stomach dropped. We'd been briefed once, maybe 6 months ago, about a company with that name, contracted for hazardous waste retrieval along border corridors. Quiet, private, off books. None of our business, they said. I guess it became our business. I stepped out of the van just in time to hear the screaming. It came from over the next ridge. Not the kind of scream that belongs to someone fighting. The kind that means they've already lost. I ran toward it without thinking, shotgun tight in my hands, heart hammering in my throat. My legs felt like they were wading through molasses, and the sun was so damn bright it felt like it was baking my thoughts right out of my skull. When I crested the hill, I saw two figures. One was a man, bald, stocky, wearing a gray jumpsuit soaked in blood. He was kneeling over something. The second was twitching, writhing. I raised the shotgun and shouted, "Step away, hands where I can see them." The bald man didn't react. He just kept chewing. It wasn't until I got closer that I realized he wasn't chewing food. He was eating the other man's face, and the other man, he was still moving, still alive. I froze. I don't know how long. A second, 10. Long enough for the one being eaten to lock eyes with me. Blood gushed from his mouth like he was trying to scream, but there was no sound, just a gurgle. His hands twitched like he was trying to crawl away, but couldn't. The bald one turned his head toward me, jaw slick, lips torn, and he grinned. I fired. Once, twice, again. The buckshot hit him square in the chest and sent him tumbling off the body, but he didn't stay down, not even for 2 seconds. He rolled, got on all fours, and started crawling toward me with his mouth still hanging open like some kind of nightmare dog. I turned and ran, back over the ridge, back to the Tahoe. Didn't even realize I was screaming until I slammed the door and fumbled the keys. The man he'd been eating didn't scream anymore because he'd gotten up too. I drove like I was being chased by the entire damn apocalypse. Maybe I was. About 10 minutes later, I passed a group of migrants trying to flag me down. I didn't stop. Couldn't. Their hands were covered in blood. One of them had a bite wound the size of a grapefruit on his shoulder. Another kept looking behind him, whispering something over and over in Spanish. El infierno abrió la puerta. Hell opened the door. That's when I saw the first fire. Smoke was rising from the direction of Station 38. That's where Alvarez had been, where our trucks were parked, our gear, our weapons. Where we thought we were safe, I floored it and prayed I wasn't already too late. I could see the plume before I saw the station. Thick, dark smoke curling up into the dead blue sky. Not the kind that rises from a campfire or a small trash burn. This was oily, heavy. It stuck in the back of my throat even before the wind shifted. The closer I got, the more wrong it looked. First, the fence was gone, not cut, ripped, twisted metal scattered across the gravel like it had been pulled apart by something big, fast, and not entirely human. Then I saw the first body, one of ours. I didn't recognize him at first. The face was torn open like something had bitten and then kept pulling until the skin gave up. His pistol was still in the holster. Never even got the chance to draw. I slowed the Tahoe but didn't stop. My fingers were locked around the wheel, my thumb twitching against the horn button even though I wasn't pressing it. There were more bodies. 4, no 5, all scattered in a loose line leading to the front of the station. Blood pooled and baked on the concrete, drying into dark, rust-colored stains. Drag marks everywhere. No shell casings, no signs of a firefight. They didn't get a chance to fight. I parked behind the remaining patrol truck, which was still idling with the driver's side door open, radio crackling softly inside. I crept toward the entrance, shotgun raised, trying not to breathe too loud, trying not to slip in the blood. The glass door had been shattered inward. Sharp shards glittered in the sunlight like tiny teeth. Inside was quiet, too quiet. No movement, just flickering fluorescent lights and a low electric hum. The air smelled like metal and piss. "Alvarez," I whispered. "Nothing. Bro, if you're in here, say something." Still nothing. Then I heard the static, not from my radio, not from the trucks. It was coming from the dispatch console inside. I stepped over a broken chair, eyes sweeping the room. A body lay crumpled behind the desk. Dispatch. Brenda. Her headset was still clamped to her skull, even though half her jaw was missing. I could see the white of her teeth through the torn flesh, grinning through death. I leaned in and picked up the handset. The static crackled louder. Then a voice cut through. "Sector 3, they've breached containment. We Kirk." More static. Then, "Tell them not to aim for the chest. It doesn't work. Headshots, only headshots." Click. Silence. I didn't have time to process it. Something slammed against the back hallway door, hard. Once, then again. I turned, raising the shotgun. It was Alvarez, or it used to be. His uniform was soaked with blood. One arm dangled at an unnatural angle, the skin hanging in shreds like peeled fruit. His eyes were white, pupils barely visible. And his mouth, God. His mouth didn't stop moving. Jaw open, teeth gnashing, blood leaking between his lips like he didn't even know he was bleeding. Just this endless, hungry chewing motion. "Al," I started, and that was enough. He roared, not screamed, roared, and charged. I fired. First shell caught him in the chest. It staggered him but didn't stop him. Second shell missed entirely. I was shaking too hard. The third hit him square in the forehead. His skull snapped back, and he dropped like a sack of meat, arms still twitching. I stood there for a second, breathing like I'd just run a mile, until my knees gave out and I slumped against the wall. That was my friend. We ate together, patrolled together, bitched about the same busted coffee machine every week, and I'd just blown his head open, because if I hadn't, he would have eaten mine. I grabbed his belt radio. Nothing but static. Then a faint voice. whispering under the crackle. They're inside. We're sealing the gates. If you can hear this, get out of the zone. Do not engage. Do not engage. It spreads by. Crack. Gone. But I already knew what it spread by. I'd seen it in the migrant's shoulder, in the man getting eaten alive, in Alvarez. Bites. That's all it took. One bite. And you were one of them. I raided what I could. Ammo, water, flashlight, a med kit that I didn't want to think about needing. The fire outside was spreading. I could hear small pops now, probably fuel tanks or radios cooking off. The heat was pushing into the building, making everything smell like burning plastic and fear. I grabbed the last working rifle, slung it over my shoulder, and stepped back outside. The desert was no longer empty. Far out, where the road disappeared into shimmer, I saw movement. Dozens of them. Maybe more. They weren't running yet, just walking, limping, crawling, heading toward the smoke, toward me. I didn't wait to find out how fast they could move. I got in the Tahoe, floored it, and headed east. Not toward town. That was a death trap waiting to happen. I needed elevation, a vantage point, somewhere I could see this unfold, somewhere I could decide if I was going to survive this or die alone in the dirt like the rest. There's an old ranger lookout about 12 miles east of the station, halfway up a hill that doesn't even show up on GPS unless you already know it's there. We used it once a year for training exercises or whenever someone wanted to sneak off and smoke in peace. It had a radio tower, a cot, and enough canned food to last a couple days if you weren't picky. No power, no running water, just wood and concrete and the illusion of safety. That's where I went. The road disappeared 2 miles in, washed out from a monsoon 3 years ago that nobody ever fixed. I drove until the sand got too soft and the Tahoe started fishtailing. From there I hiked, rifle in one hand, pack in the other. Sun on my back like it was trying to kill me too. I kept thinking about Alvarez and that sound he made right before I pulled the trigger. I don't think it was human. Not anymore. By the time I reached the outpost, the shadows were long and the desert had gone quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet. There's a difference. I could still smell the smoke, even that far out. The station was a black smudge on the horizon now, and below me, scattered like spilled ants, I could see them, walking, crawling over dry creek beds and through dead brush, heading east, always east, like something was drawing them or pushing them. I set up inside, locked the door, propped a chair under the handle like that would actually matter if they found me, checked the rifle, 4 magazines, half a box of loose shells, enough to make noise but not enough to last. Then I powered up the radio. It came to life slow, spitting out static and weird distortion, like the air itself was fighting back. For a few seconds I thought it was fried. Maybe the fire had knocked out the tower, or maybe someone had shut it all down to keep the panic from spreading. Then I found a signal, not clear, not strong, but there. A voice, maybe female, cut through the noise like a whisper through glass. We're not sick. They're not sick. This isn't natural. Another voice took over. Firm, cold, official. This is a Department of Defense emergency alert. If you are within 20 miles of Sector 38, you are advised to shelter in place. Do not attempt to flee. Reinforcements are en route. A beat, then quieter. All Vira clean operatives are considered compromised. Do not engage. The signal cut. Vira clean. I thought about the clipboard, the cages, the fact that nobody ever told us what they were hauling. Biohazard, they said. Just waste. Old pharmaceuticals and dead samples, all cleaned up and boxed away. Not our jurisdiction, but that wasn't waste in those crates. Those were test subjects, and we were the control group. I stared out the window as the last bit of sunlight died, and I swear to God, just before the dark took the ridge, I saw someone standing out there, not moving, not swaying, just standing, watching me. I barely slept that night. Every creak in the woods sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind felt like breath on my neck. I don't know how many times I checked the lock. 5, 15. At some point, I stopped counting. And the whole time, the radio stayed on. Every 30 minutes, it repeated that same message. Shelter in place. Do not flee. Do not engage. But around 3 a.m., something new came through. It was a whisper, a man's voice, weak, like he was speaking through gauze. We didn't mean to open it. They promised it was contained. We were told it couldn't spread. Please, if you're hearing this, burn the bodies. It's the only way, the only Kirk. Static again. And this time, it didn't go away. The signal was gone. At sunrise, I climbed onto the roof with my rifle and scanned the horizon. More of them. Dozens. No hundreds. And far behind, a black line moving like ants across a sheet of fire. Military trucks, choppers, armed response. Too late. I watched the lead vehicle try to push through a ravine. They didn't make it. One of the infected leapt onto the windshield, and then it was chaos. Screams through the air like birds scattering. One by one, the trucks fell silent, and the line kept crawling east, toward the towns, the highways, the cities. This thing, it wasn't an outbreak. It was a breach, something caged too long, something that got loose, and all I had was a rifle, a radio full of lies, and the memory of my partner's blood on my hands. I thought I'd be safer up here. I thought I could outlast it, but now they're climbing. I can hear them below the hill, bones snapping, feet dragging. They're not stopping, and the only question left is, do I wait or do I run? They found me just after dawn. I'd stayed awake all night, back against the wall, finger on the trigger, every muscle cramping from hours of stillness. I didn't even dare to blink sometimes. Every creak of the old outpost, every gust of wind against the door. I thought, this is it. But they didn't break it down. They just waited. I could hear them, shuffling, breathing. One of them, God help me, laughing. Not a real laugh, not human. Just this wet, broken noise that sounded like someone choking on blood and trying to find joy in it. It was like they knew I was trapped. and they were giving me time to think about it. The sun rose red, not orange, not gold, red, like the desert had bled into the sky. I crept to the window and peeked out. They were still there, maybe 20 of them now, standing, sitting, some just staring, their skin stretched thin like old leather, mouths slack, heads tilted, waiting, like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. That's when I realized they weren't climbing. They weren't trying to get in. They were keeping me here. I made my choice around 8 a.m., loaded every magazine, checked the shotgun, tightened my vest, and duct taped my ankle, which I must have twisted during the hike up. I wasn't fast anymore, but I had enough left to move, enough left to fight. I grabbed my pack, slung the rifle, and kicked open the door. The noise scattered some of them, not all. One turned, a woman, or something that used to be, and came at me fast, faster than the others had moved, mouth wide, hands clawed. I fired once. Her head came apart like wet paper. That got their attention. The rest started toward me, slow at first, then hungry. I didn't stop to aim, just ran. They came from both sides of the trail. 2 more, then 4, then more than I could count. I weaved between rocks, ducked under twisted mesquite branches, fired when I had to, shoved when I didn't. One grabbed the back of my vest. I dropped backward and rolled, shotgun blast tearing through its face as it came down. Another got close enough to grab my wrist, bit down on my glove hard enough to crush bone, but it didn't break the skin. Didn't break me. I made it to the Tahoe, still there, still whole, like a goddamn miracle. I climbed in and slammed the door as they reached the gravel. My hands shook as I turned the key. Engine coughed, growled, caught. I floored it, didn't look back. 10 minutes out, I finally heard something besides the engine. Helicopters, 2 of them. Low, fast, black, no markings. They weren't there to help. They didn't even slow down. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, past the dust trail and the curve of the hills, I saw the fire start. The whole hilltop where the outpost had been went up like it had been soaked in gas. They were cleansing it. No survivors, no questions. I kept driving until the desert turned to asphalt. Eventually, I found a highway checkpoint, deserted except for one Humvee and a sign half blown over that said, "Biohazard Quarantine Zone. Do not enter. Deadly force authorized." The soldiers were already dead, torn apart, rifles still strapped to their chests. One of them had shot himself in the head. Blood sprayed against the back of the truck in a long, curved arc. They knew they weren't getting out, but I wasn't ready to give up. I scavenged what I could. Food, ammo, a clean map, and kept going, away from the smoke, away from the dead. It's been 12 hours since the first one tried to climb onto my hood. 12 hours since dispatch went silent and the world started bleeding from the seams. I don't know how far this has spread. I don't know who's still alive. But I know this. I survived. I survived because I ran when it was time to run. Because I didn't wait for someone to tell me what to do. Because I looked the end of the world in the face. and pulled the trigger. I'm still wearing my uniform, still got the badge, but I'm not a border patrol officer anymore. Now I'm just another guy trying to outdrive the end. And if you're hearing this, you better start running too. If you're still breathing, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you dare. There are plenty more nightmares waiting for you. And whatever you do, don't forget to ring the bell. It's the only way you'll hear the warnings in time.